Southern 500 returned to tough old Darlington Raceway Saturday night. After a record 17 caution flags, 2 winners were declared, one of the oldest tracks on the circuit and one of the oldest drivers in the field.
It has been sort of a mismatch of various strategies.
I don't think we've seen the last of this chess game.
And Mark Martin takes off, heading off into turn number 1.
Battle for the lead. Jimmy Johnson charging hard to the outside, trying to get the run on Mark Martin, but it's not there.
Mark's giving him everything he can handle. Jimmy Johnson doing the same thing to Mark.
And they are worked up into a frenzy. They're starting the chant, holding 5 fingers in the air.
It's his second win in 2009. Mark Martin wins the Southern 500 at Darlington.
Mark Martin scored his second win of 2009 and the 37th of his NASCAR Sprint Cup career. The first time since 1999 that Mark has scored multiple wins in a season. Martin led a big night for Chevy as the Bowties swept the top 7 spots. The first time Chevy done that at Darlington in 29 years. We'll look at all the crashes, the strategy, the rallies, and more next on NASCAR Now. From the Home Depot Garage Studio, welcome to the Tallying Up the Damage edition of the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. Mark Martin with a very popular victory in the Southern 500 while most were left to load up their battered cars after the track Too Tough to Tame did its thing. We pick it all apart now with our roundtable panel. Mike Wallace, Ed Hinton, and Ricky Craven. 23 lead changes, 17 caution flags. Were you entertained?
To a certain degree, entertainment, yes. It was, I'm not sure it's exactly what everybody wanted it to be, but it was entertaining. Some lead changes, pit road strategy, spin outs. It was all good.
What do you think?
A lot of lead changes, but all done on pit strategy, staying out, that sort of thing. Wasn't a Talladega type lead change.
No. What do you think?
I was entertained at the end, you know, but I've seen more exciting Darlington races.
All right, well, let's start our review with the crashes and the caution flags. A record number for a Darlington race, 17 in all. And we had crashes of all variety. They started early, they continued frequently.
Track does not choose favorites.
Lap 160, there's Denny Hamlin getting together with David Reagan. Now in a second, we'll see Reagan on the other end of that when he found the wall.
You know what happens, Alan? When them cars run into each other, they spin out and wreck.
Yeah, they do.
And at Darlington, it's always because you run out of room.
And as far as not discriminating, even former champions, here's Kurt Busch just going for a slide.
Yeah. But he did it well, didn't he?
Yeah, style points there.
Even when they don't run into each other, they spin out.
Isn't this like where the 3 T's come in fast? You lose track, traction, and talent all at the same time? Or
nastiest hit of the night here, Clint Boyer.
Would that hurt?
Wow.
As hard as we've seen in a while, and you can see it in his face here.
Glad to see Clint was okay. Some random notes from the finishing order. A week after his Richmond win, Kyle Busch with his worst finish since Daytona. Clint Boyer's record streak of races without a DNF came to an end at 83, and the previously mentioned new track record for cautions at 17. So a little twist on a phrase heard often in baseball these last few days, not having to do with Manny, but was this just Darlington being Darlington, or was there something specific going on here?
Darlington on speed. It was too fast. It was a lady in black. You know, they've been narrowing a track anyway with the safer barriers and everything. Now they're just going way too fast. Tony Stewart told me during practice on Friday, he said, hey, there are guys down on the apron in practice. That's where we're supposed to run in the race.
I thought the race was really edgy. You know, just watching these drivers run over 180 miles an hour into the corner and attempting to pass looked very uncomfortable.
You know, I'm going to steal a quote that Mark Martin stole from Dick Trickle back in 1977. Said, "You first must finish to finish first." Martin said some of the guys didn't get the memo on Saturday night.
It's true.
Yeah, every time I see that, it just sends a shiver up my spine. I was so glad to see Clint climb out of that car. You mentioned the speed. I think one of the things we were all curious about going into the Darlington weekend was a year into the paving of a track that traditionally in the past, after it was paved, lost a lot of speed the following years. This place lost none of its speed this time.
It didn't lose any speed, Alan, and the thing about it, Goodyear did such a great job of bringing a tire that stayed through the run. You know, it made the race interesting strategy-wise. 2 tires, 4 tires, no tires. So we got what we asked for.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, and Tony, I mentioned Tony Stewart. He told me, he said, it feels like we're running faster this time than we were last time. Maybe it's because the tires were holding. We're staying together, and maybe they just were a lot faster into the run than they had been last.
So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a drivers, these incidents we're looking at, most times you get mad at the other driver when there's contact between cars, right? But knowing it's Darlington, does it mitigate some of that? Do you leave less mad at other drivers because it's that racetrack, or is it still the same?
Well, you know, I've watched the race, and I didn't see anybody getting out of their car screaming and hollering because they got run into. We've watched guys run into each other 3 times in the same corner.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point, a great question. Spontaneous, mad, angry the minute it happens, but when you get out, you come to the realization of where you're racing.
It's just Darlington.
And also, they're mad at the racetrack rather than each other. Bristol, they don't get mad at. They get mad at each other. Here, they're mad at the racetrack. That's almost like the racetrack is embodied, is a person almost to it.
And as a gender, it's the lady in black.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing that nickname come back more and more. Pit strategy played a huge role in determining the outcome of Saturday night's race, who won it and who didn't. On the 14th caution, here at lap 297, Martin Truex Jr. and Matt Kenseth stayed on the racetrack while Mark Martin and the other leaders pit. Martin's team went for fuel only. They picked up 6 spots there. They'd put that track position to good use later. Then, at lap 319, the next caution for debris from Sam Hornish's car, Truex pits from the lead, takes right side tires, but he comes off pit road behind Tony Stewart. Problem was, 7 other cars stayed on the racetrack, so Stewart and Truex lined up 8th and 9th. Not good.
Well, it's a big win for us, but, you know, my race team won this race. They're putting me in great race cars every week, but Alan Gustafson and the calls he made starting on Friday, we talked about how the car was working in different places on the racetrack, and we started a strategy right then of where we were going to be strong on the racetrack.
We had a good car. We knew we had a good car, but we get Meyer back in the pack, and we couldn't go. And you get stacked up, and guys jump outside of you on restarts, you just can't do anything about it. So we had to get out front. You know, we had to see what we had, and we got an opportunity to do it. I was kind of surprised those guys came and got tires, but we took our opportunity, and we knew we had a pretty good car because we drove up through there. You know, we had a lug nut problem, went to the back, was able to drive back to the front, so we knew we had a pretty good car. You just don't know until you get out front.
It's been nice to know what could have happened if we could have been out front with a full tank of gas. I mean, clean air, it was a rocket. Just you know, anyone that seemed to get out front could get on with it. But it was a great run for us. I'm proud of all the guys for their work, and one of these days things are just going to work out and all the stars are going to line up and we're going to finish the deal again.
There have been only 4 instances in Cup Series history where a driver's gone on at least 15 years between wins at one track. 2 of those belong to Mark Martin. Saturday night at Darlington, his first win there since 1993, a gap of almost 16 years. A few weeks ago, he did the same thing at Phoenix. The longest span between wins at one track, 22 years, also at Darlington, that done by Terry Labonte. So essentially, the winning pass was made on pit road when Mark Martin's team picked up those 6 spots on the fuel-only stop at lap 297, and then the track position thing worked out to them well. Agree or disagree, and why, but clean air and track position were critical to his winning the race.
Absolutely. It became more and more apparent as the race went on that this was going to come down to track position. And when do you take that last set of tires, right sides, no tires? And I think that when Martin Truex was leading it with no tire change, it was very obvious.
Yep.
Well, I think what it's proven is these cars have a balance situation, and when they got all the maximum downforce, all the air on the front of the cars, they drive incredibly fast. You put new tires on a car and he's mired 6 or 7 cars back, he's not going to drive through the pack, and then by the time he gets to them, he's out of tires.
Mark, go ahead.
The only guy who had a distinctively better car than anybody else to me was Biffle, because other people would get out and lead by 2 or 3 seconds. Biffle could break out there 8 seconds above everybody else. So I think he had the best car, and when he was out there, he was fine. When he was back in the back, he was as bad a shape as anybody else.
Going to show what happened to Greg Biffle's race here coming up in a few minutes. Mark did get the lead with some strategy, but he did have some work to do in the closing laps of the race because he had a guy who's won a championship or 2 right on his back bumper. Jimmy Johnson was trying hard.
He was trying so hard. And, you know, 3 things that apply here: experience, discipline, and focus Why does it seem so obvious that Mark Martin should have been the favorite going into this race? He has all that.
Well, and he has had for years. I mean, he knows how to race a race. He knows how to get to the end, and look at that car. It's perfect.
It didn't have a Darlington stripe. That was a prerequisite.
It's the cleanest car I've ever seen in Victory Lane at Darlington.
Yeah.
And last topic I wanted to bring up here, and I know you like this one. How do you feel about a 50-year-old winning a race at Darlington?
Mark Martin, I love you, baby. You know, you're the man, yes. Because I tell you what, it proves that you put a good driver, good race car driver with a great race team, and it doesn't matter if you're 50 years old or you're 20 years old, you can get it done. So, Mark, you and I are in the same club, buddy. Yes.
There you go. Your opinion wanted, please. Who do you consider to be the favorite to win the 2009 NASCAR Sprint Cup Championship? Now, I personally think it's too soon to start talking that, but we want to know what you think. Our crew has narrowed it down to those 5 choices. Log on to ESPN.com and cast a vote. Results later in the show. Speaking of later in the show, the Darlington winner, Mark Martin, is going to join us. We'll ask questions, he'll give answers, and you'll hear it all toward the bottom of the hour. We'll also talk about one of the unfortunate headlines from the weekend, the suspension of Jeremy Mayfield, and a surrounding discussion of NASCAR's drug testing program. And we'll look at the NASCAR Sprint Cup's championship standings. Some are climbing higher, some are drifting back after Saturday night. As we continue to look at Saturday night's Southern 500, some remarkable rallies to talk about. The winner, Mark Martin, this night wasn't all smooth. He had to come back from a pit stop snafu. A little lug nut missing on the left front caused him to pit again on his lap 163 stop. He went from 5th to 22nd, obviously recovered nicely. Jeff Gordon had a loose wheel, had to pit under green at lap 105. Went a lap down, got the free pass at lap 214 when Kurt Busch went for a spin, and Gordon came all the way back to finish in 5th position. No bigger rally, though, than the 3-time champ, Jimmie Johnson. Problems began during qualifying on Friday when he had this crash. So he started at the back in an unpracticed backup car, then had to dodge trouble right in the opening corners of the race. Oh, look out. Yeah, okay, got away with it there. Jimmie stayed out under the first caution when everybody pitted, got some track position, which caused him troubles when he had to stop under green for fuel at lap 74. And as it always happens, one lap later, the caution came out when Michael Waltrip had his big hot problem, fortunately Mikey. Okay, that left Jimmie a lap down. He gets the free pass at lap 118 when Sam Hornish hits the spin cycle. So Jimmie comes back around, rejoins the lead lap, then he himself gets spun out on pit road at lap 217. It's not the right view, is it?
Not the right view.
They should have just went ahead and put 4 on at that time.
And you don't practice that either, by the way.
No. So Jimmie then stays out at lap 322, which moves him up to 2nd behind Mark Martin, and he chases Mark to the checkers for a 42nd to 2nd place result.
We ran well, ran in the top 5, top 10, all night, except, we did have a setback on pit road where we had to come back in and restart at the back of the pack. But when we did that, we drove right from 25th to 10th there pretty quickly. Our car was perfect for almost out of gas and old tires. Our car was the best on old tires. Our car was deathly loose on new tires, and a struggle back in the pack. And finally we got a chance to run it with the gas out and the tires were old when it was its best. And there wasn't anything out there any faster than what we were at the end. That car was really, really strong, and I only ran it as hard as I had to stay in front.
Man, we just had so many things that we had to overcome. And, at Darlington, because it's a long race, you can't overcome a lot, but those guys played the strategy right there at the end, and I really thought those 2 tires were going to work for me and Tony, and they did for a short period of time, and then the car just stopped. So I was having a lot of fun with Ryan Newman trying to get by him there at the end, and it was a great effort for Hendrick Motorsports. Whew, man, that was one hard 5th place finish.
Man, that was like a 1,000-mile race for us. We caught up in a bunch of different things on track. It spun out trying to get in my pit stall one time. Passed a lot of cars all night long. We finally got some track position at the end. We knew we had a good car, and they could take advantage of that there. And my hat's off to Mark Martin, that whole 5 team. We were running as hard as we could and just kind of matching pace, and then we had to go into fuel conservation mode after that. But for 50 years old, he drives his butt off, man. I'm proud of him.
To borrow a phrase, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. How about that night for Jimmie Johnson Saturday?
Oh, I have never seen the guy come in after the TV. He had a stiff upper lip on the TV cameras. He came in there with us. I've never seen the guy so drained and just dejected. He was just sick to do that much and still lose. That's usually one of those races where you're talking about one of the great Jimmy Johnson, Chad Canals success stories. They did all that, they lost. He was sick.
But wait a minute, 42nd to second. That's a success story to me.
Now, with them, it's 42nd to first.
Yeah, but you got to remember.
This is where you measure excellence. I'm telling you, when drivers are facing adversity, like Jimmy Johnson, starting from the back, or even Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin for that matter, and execute all the way up, back to the front, and contend for the win, I'm telling you, that's as impressive as it gets, because a lot of drivers failed at it.
Ricky, here's the deal. It's age and maturity by Mark Martin. 50 years old.
He's back on that.
Those guys are too young. He was burning the tires up trying to chase Mark down. You heard him say, I had plenty in reserve. I was good to go.
A three-peat champion and the genius crew chief of our time can't measure up to a 50-year-old.
That's right.
Oh, there we go.
But there was this kid in the field that we're going to talk about later, right?
Yeah, there are. Some others we want to talk about right now, though, who had very notable performances. Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman finished 3rd and 4th, continuing the strong effort for that team. Very nice job for them. They've surprised me in the opening run of the season.
I mean, incredible job this year.
And we keep talking about it week after week because they keep putting the numbers up week after week.
They are just very, very steady.
Tony's 2nd in points right now. Ryan Newman, again, solid run. Remember where he was a few weeks into the season in points?
I know, Alan. And, you know, I know the horse has left the barn, so to speak, but look, this guy is back. You could see it after the race. He's sitting on the wall. His tank was empty. He used up everything he had.
And also a note to me on Saturday night, Joey Logano started 5th, led 19 laps, got shuffled back a bit by pit stop schedules late in the race, but still 9th place run. What a nice ride for this kid.
Joey did a great job. I think the one thing he did, he went into that race and raced the racetrack all night long. He played them video games that he always talks about.
What about it, Mr. Stewart?
I was just tickled to death tonight. I mean, that's the best finish I've ever had at a Southern 500, and it's a tough race. I mean, it's one of the toughest races physically we run all year, obviously with the heat the way it was today, but you know, our guys on the pit stops tonight, I mean, we just had phenomenal stops all night, and that made the difference. I bet they passed 12 guys in the pits today, and just an amazing night for the pit crew. So you know, the guys that came in and those of us that came in at the end and got 2, I mean, we were leading that group. We just didn't have enough to get by Mark and Jimmy tonight.
I was struggling about lap 150, and the guys did a good job giving us a fast race car. I think we had 140 laps on our left side tires at the end of the race, and if we put us out front, we might have been able to win the race. But good run for the U.S. Army Chevrolet, and you know, I wish we'd been close to this Southern 500. It's one that's special to me, but we'll come back next year and try.
I was very happy with the way we ran. You know, I led laps in the Southern 500. I was stoked about that. I was all excited. So, you know, I think we had a good run. You know, there towards the end, we're not in the points position to go gamble and try to stay out there on fuel right now. So, you know, we played it conservative, and you know, we got a solid top 10. I mean, that's where we ran all day pretty much. So we didn't steal any spots. That's just what it was. And awesome pit stops all night. Every time we came down pit road, we gained spots. You know, at least one. So that was huge.
Now, on the other side of the coin, a really good effort that didn't get rewarded at Darlington. We mentioned this a little bit earlier. Greg Biffle led twice as many laps as anybody else Saturday night, 117, leading by 2.6 seconds at lap 275 when the caution waved for Jamie McMurray getting in trouble, pictured here. On the ensuing pit stop, I thought it was pictured there, my bad. On the ensuing pit stop, his team, yeah, there it is, Jamie McMurray getting in trouble. I was ahead of myself. I hate it when that happens. Biffle's team goes for 4 tires here on the pit stop, which cost him a little bit of track position. After the restart, there's contact with Carl Edwards, causing Edwards to crash, and then a crash for Biffle himself a little while later, which we will see right here. Crunch. And through all of that, Biffle still came back to finish in the top 10. He had an 8th place result at the end of the night. But what could have been for the driver of the 16 after leading twice as many laps as anybody else?
We had a great car tonight, probably the fastest car here, and the driver just screwed it up. I don't know what happened to the car. Hadn't been loose there all night, and it spun out like it had a flat tire. And I got really big loose off of 2, and I went down in the corner down there, and it just no grip. So I don't know if I ran over something or what, but it's all you can do, you know. I just ran as hard as I could and did the best job I could, and I don't know what happened down there. I really wish I knew.
Tough night for Mr. Biffle. So we check the NASCAR Sprint Cup standings after Darlington. Jeff Gordon still leads, up 29 points on Tony Stewart, who's in second. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. On the other hand, Carl Edwards slips 3 spots to 12th. Only 89 points separate he and 18th place Dale Jr. at the All-Star break. By the way, Clint Boyer falls 5 spots after his crash and falls out of the top 12. Now, speaking of Dale Jr., his fans are blowing up our NASCAR Now Nation inbox, talking about Junior and what's going on with him. For example, Frank in Decatur, Georgia, writes to say he's a diehard Junior fan, but feels like something needs to be done, suggesting maybe Rick Hendrick needs to experiment, perhaps putting Chad Knaus with the 88 team for a few weeks.
You might want to check with Jimmy, okay?
Now, they've had a tough run here, and I don't like piling on, but the sport's most popular driver is dominating the fan mail. Thoughts?
I've got some thoughts. First of all, Rick Hendricks doesn't need to change his other teams. They're winning races. Right. What I would like to see happen is Dale Earnhardt Jr. and his team has beat themselves quite a few times this year on pit road. Let's take away all the times they beat themselves, sliding through the pit box, lug nut problems, something like get that all cleared off and just start racing without those problems on pit road. I think they'll have better races when that happens.
Well, the Hendrick team is a highly analytical team. I don't think, despite what the fans want, they're not going to separate Tony Jr. and Dale Jr. That's Dale's security blanket. He couldn't do without it. But they are analyzing their radio traffic. That Doug Ducart and other people are going over to see how they can communicate better. They're wasting a lot of time bickering, coming down the pit road, that sort of thing. They're trying to get that communication just to the technology and get it down and try to stop those pit road mistakes.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of experts on what's wrong with Junior. I might as well weigh in here.
Please do, yeah.
The fact is that he's going to have to work his way out of this because the only guy that can get Dale Jr. out of this is Dale Jr. And he's going to have to spend every ounce of time and effort with his team. He's going to have to set back, dismiss other things going on in life, and dedicate himself to Hendrick Motorsport. I'm not suggesting he hasn't done that, but the numbers don't lie. The other 3 cars are running too well for this to be going on.
Well, he's got a big pool of resources there, Ricky. I mean, he can talk to the other drivers. They all admire him, everybody on that team. All they got to do is sit around and talk about it and go, guys, what do you think we need to do? Talk to my crew chief. Talk to all of us. Give me some advice. I'll do whatever you want.
I think that's an excellent point, and that he has got an invaluable resource in Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, and Jimmy Johnson. Any one of those guys would be spectacular to counsel you on how to handle things. But he's got to spend quality time with his team because you know there's a ripple effect to not running well. They start to lose confidence too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to.
Yeah, he needs to spend time on that shop floor. That was a weakness of his father's toward the end of the career too. Those guys who are doing stuff for you need to know that you know them. They'll work their guts out for you if you just walk by and give them a smile on the shop floor once in a while.
It's worth $1 million. That's right, Ed.
Yeah, interesting to follow the sport's most popular driver who gets a lot of attention, even when he doesn't run well.
Think what if he won a lot?
You know, he can't conduct himself like a normal driver, though, half the time.
Speaking of Mark Martin, we talked about him earlier. He's going to join us to talk about his Darlington win and his charge up the standings. But up next, the weekend's unpleasant headline, a discussion of Jeremy Mayfield's NASCAR drug policy violation. ESPN's exclusive coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series returns Saturday, May 23rd, 1 week from Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, from Charlotte. Kyle Busch has been the king there recently. Can he continue his role? Find out. 7 Eastern, May 23rd, ESPN 2. On Saturday, not long before the start of the Southern 500, NASCAR Vice President of Communications Jim Hunter announced that driver Jeremy Mayfield and 2 others had been suspended indefinitely from competition for violations of NASCAR's substance abuse policy.
NASCAR has one of the toughest substance abuse policies in all of sports. That's number 1. And it's all about safety and competition. And a positive result means an indefinite suspension from all competition. The implementation of the random testing aspect of this program has been welcomed and supported by the drivers, owners, and other competitors in the sport.
Jeremy Mayfield released this statement, quote, "As both a team owner and a driver in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, I have immense respect for the enforcement policies NASCAR has in place. In my case, I believe that the combination of a prescribed medicine and an over-the-counter medicine reacted together and resulted in a positive drug test. My doctor and I are working with both Dr. Black and NASCAR to resolve this matter," end quote. Reaction from competitors after the announcement.
When they brought the new drug policy along, I think everybody knew how serious it was. When they send you to specialists that do the testing, and then you know that there's random testing done by those same individuals every weekend, you know that you got to take it very serious. And I think it's not very unfortunate for Jeremy, but it's going to send a big message to everybody up and down through this garage area, to make sure that we're treating this sport as professionally as it deserves to be treated.
NASCAR's doing their job, and that's important. And it's whether he was racing or not, it's still important to keep the garage clean, and they're doing their job.
They're not fooling around with this thing. They made that message crystal clear back when they put this thing in place. So I'm not surprised for an indefinite suspension, and it's too bad, but those things are there, and that substance abuse policy is there for a reason.
I think I've been tested 3 or 4 times this year, and I think everybody in the garage has. So policy's good, and like I said, a year and a half ago, this is what our sport is all about, is a clean sport, and those that don't want to be that way, it's not a place for them.
Now, we did offer Jeremy Mayfield an opportunity to appear on the program today. He did politely decline. And the Dr. Black referenced in his statement is Dr. Robert Black of Aegis Sciences Corporation out of Nashville, who oversees NASCAR's drug testing program. NASCAR won't reveal details of what the substance is that Jeremy or the others tested positive for, and says Jeremy must work with Dr. Black down a path towards reinstatement. Now, first, initial reactions toward this whole thing would be
I want to see more. I want to see more clarity on NASCAR's part, more transparency.
I applaud them enforcing this and obviously having the system in place as a competitor.
I applaud them for the system. The one thing they did say early in the year, though, there are some drugs that can show up in over-the-counter prescriptions that are not considered legal, but we don't know what those are.
Now, you as a driver were told that in a meeting that was held down at Daytona in February, correct?
Correct.
Before the start of Speed Weeks. Okay. Now, you have a valid competition license for 2009, so I want to ask you just a couple questions. First of all, are you handed a list of substances so that you have a piece of paper saying, nope, can't take that or shouldn't have that?
No.
Okay.
The answer is no.
So how does it work? Let me just throw an example at you. You have a back spasm or something. You go to your doctor, he prescribes a muscle relaxer. Before you take that medication, after you start taking it, what do you get involved with NASCAR on that?
Well, I think it's all changed now. And what happened is you sign a competitor's license. In the competitor's license, then you sign a release saying NASCAR can test you at any time they feel fit. That's the random drug policy. Is there a list of do's and don'ts of products? No, there's not. But what they have instilled, and they have a very good NASCAR medical liaison department, says call us. If you're going to take something and you're not sure, pick up the phone, call us, send us a copy of the label or something, and we'll try to read through it.
Does what happened with Jeremy change how you'll approach anything in the future?
Well, I think it has to. I mean, we as drivers, crew members, owners, whatever, have to take a look at this and go, okay, well, I can't just maybe take Sudafed, an over-the-counter, product. I can't maybe mix it with an Advil or Tylenol. I think when we're not feeling good, we just throw stuff in us to try to feel good. I don't know if you do that or not. I know people that do. And the end result is we got to be very cautious about it now. We're going to have to get from NASCAR the okay to say, okay, we're going to use this. We have this prescription. A lot of people have a prescription, so NASCAR knows that. They consulted with me about what I put down listed as what I use, or have. And then if you're going to try anything else, I guess they're saying call us because we're going to let you know if you can do it or not.
Yeah, well, last time I raced in Cup, 2004, 2003, 2004, they had a policy in place, and I understood it, and I would not compete without disclosing if I had a cold or if I was taking medication. I only did that one time for allergies. It was no issue. But I don't understand why anybody else wouldn't do that. Mike, I'm sure that you would have done that, or any competitor, because that makes sense to me. Be accountable, be responsible, and there's no issue.
They just put a big statement out here with Jeremy, and right, wrong. I mean, Jeremy's got his viewpoint on what might have taken place. You know, for his sake, I hope that's what took place. But they were very clear back in February to say, boys, do not mess with us. Yeah. We're not going to play games here, and it's for real.
Jeremy's not only a driver but a team owner. How does this affect him going forward in the business?
Oh, he's done, I'm afraid. If NASCAR, that's why I want to see more clarity from NASCAR. What was this? Was Jeremy telling the truth when he said it was a combination of prescription medication and over-the-counter medication? There is a chasm of difference between some allergy medication and crack cocaine or heroin. Now, unfortunately, because NASCAR won't tell, or claims they can't tell, what was Jeremy Mayfield doing? If he was taking allergy medication and some sponsor years down the road say, hey man, he had a drug problem, we're not touching him, as an owner, he's done. That's why NASCAR, to be fair, they've got to narrow it down. I at least got Hunter that day. I said, you know, there's rumor going around with just alcohol. He at least cut that out. Then, you know, cut out some things. If it's a minor thing that comes to this huge top of crack or heroin, that sort of thing, they can't expose these guys to that kind of reputational damage if they didn't go that far.
Yeah.
And if it's something simple like allergies, like when I went to Phoenix and there was something, mold or something out there that I reacted to, and I went to the liaison who exists today, and I said, look, I'm taking Claritin. And they said, good. But why wouldn't that eliminate what you're describing?
Well, you're right. If everybody were that conscientious, but NASCAR, as we were talking about earlier, NASCAR has a long history of despotism. Pike, dictatorship. It means all of you NASCAR drivers know the term dictatorship with regard to NASCAR. All right. The thing is, they can get you for what they want to get. I mean, now drug testing becomes almost like inspection. If they want to get you, they can get you. That's the thing. Yes, you can go ahead and you can be a Ricky Craven, and I'm sure Jeff Gordon's the same way. You're meticulous, every little thing that goes along the line. But my gosh, you know, like Alan says, what if just before you get in the car, you start sneezing, your eyes get watery, and they test you coming out of the car. There's too much what we used to call EIRI, except in rare instances where if they want to get you, they can get you. That's too open. They need to narrow it down. It needs to be stricter. Yes, drivers should be more conscientious. I understand what you're saying, but there's such a broad spectrum there. It's way too broad. Way too broad.
It will be interesting to see how any of this plays out going forward. Jeremy, as far as he's concerned, how he does attempt to get himself back in the sport and so on. But for now, Jeremy Mayfield and those two other crew members from different teams indefinitely suspended after violations of NASCAR's drug testing policy. Still to come on the Monday Roundtable edition of NASCAR Now, we'll look back at Friday night's NASCAR Nationwide Series twist of plot at Darlington. But up next, the winner of the Southern 500, Mark Martin, joins us from his shop down in Daytona Beach. The Mark Martin season got off to kind of a rough start. He averaged 32nd place in the first 4 races, which included back-to-back 40th place showings. Performance got better as the season went on, though. Mark averaged the 5th place finish in races 5 through 8, including his win at Phoenix. Speaking of that win, Mark breaking a 97-race winless streak and becoming the 4th 50-year-old driver to win a NASCAR Sprint Cup race when he took that checkered flag. Following race was at Talladega. Not good. Mark involved in the big one. He was credited with a last place finish. Then the rebound came at Richmond with a strong 5th place showing. The performance moving Mark up to 15th place in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Championship standings. Then on Saturday night, Martin took the checkers in the Southern 500 at Darlington. It marked the first multi-win season for Mark Martin in 10 years. Joining us now by satellite from his race shops in the Daytona Beach, Florida area is the Southern 500 winner, Mr. Mark Martin. Mark, thanks for the time. Congratulations. How difficult was that race for you and why?
Oh, it was really a difficult race for all the competitors. You know, the combination of the speed and the shape of the racetrack, the tire and the asphalt combination made it really, really tricky. Additional tricky because you know, the grip was so good, and once that tire started to slip, you know, it was gone. And you saw a lot of guys let those cars get away from them because, you know, they just didn't get much warning about it starting to slip away.
Hey, Mark, Mike Wallace here. You know, buddy, we go back to in the 70s, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Springfield, Missouri, all that. You've won a lot of races. Through that time, you got a little depressed winning all those races, but I see a new recharged Mark Martin. I mean, what's keeping you motivated, buddy? You're 50 years old and kicking their rear end there.
It's the love of racing. You know, I'm not chasing points or anything else. You know, taking 2 years and sitting at home for 24 races over the course of 2 years gave me an opportunity to recharge my batteries and assess my life and find out what I really loved, and that's driving a fast race car. Rick Hendrick, the 5 team, Kellogg's CarQuest, and Chevrolet have given me the opportunity to drive one of the best race cars out there, and I love it.
Hey, Mark, this is Ed Hinton. Saturday night, you were sort of indicating, I noticed after the race, you were talking about things like no telling what could happen this season. I can't wait to get to the All-Star race. Seemed like the Mr. Never Count on Anything Mark Martin had gone away, and there's a new sunny sky over your head. Is that still there, or is the cloud of being cautious returned in these 2 days since your win?
No, Ed, I know one thing for sure. I'm going to have some more fun this year. You know, it's going to be a blast. I can't wait to get to the All-Star race. It's a really exciting format at the best venue, my favorite venue on the circuit. And you know, we're having a ball. I really look forward to it, and I look forward to going to work every day to drive those guys' 5-car.
Mark, Ricky Craven, I know this much about you. Give you the lead with 25 or less to go. You live for that moment. But I've been wondering since Saturday night, did you have any reserve? Because you look smooth as silk, and with Jimmy coming on, I'm thinking this is going to be a great race. Did you have any reserve, or was your tongue hanging out?
No, Ricky, I had plenty in the bank there. The only time I really ran hard was the first 3 or 4 laps after on the restarts. You know, Jimmy would really try hard, and my car got better the longer we ran. So after about 3 or 4 laps, I could really, you know, I could start rolling out of it and you know, kind of cruising. The car was so spectacular on that last run, and it was really, really cool to win. It was a great team effort, but it wasn't as exciting as your and Kurt's finish.
Mark, last week you announced that you would compete again full-time next season, and Alan Gustafson would be your crew chief. Why that decision, and why now to announce that?
Well, you know, I think it's important for our team to really know, you know, where we're headed long term. It's also important, I think, for our sponsors to know, you know, where we're headed long term. Long term meaning, you know, 2010. You know, I knew what Rick wanted to do from the start, but I wanted to make sure, number one, that I would really be happy doing this. And most importantly, that Alan and I could really be effective and get the communication and get the performance that race team needed. And really, most importantly, I had to make sure that I could do the job, because I didn't want to hold this race team back. I have enormous respect for this race team, and you know, I want the best for them. And you know, all that stuff was satisfied pretty early on. And then with the Phoenix win, you know, it really felt right. So it took all of about 60 seconds for Rick and I, you know, to make the deal. It was just one of those things where, is that what you want? Yes, it is. And well, that's what I want. Okay, let's do it.
There you go. That sounds like a good one. So to sum it up, it was a tough race Saturday night. You had a little something left in the tank. You're having a lot of fun. Can't wait to get to Charlotte next week, and you're ready to go for more next year. And we appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. You guys have a great show, and I enjoy watching you.
Thank you, Mark. Saturday night, Southern 500 winner Mark Martin. Still to come, a preview of this Saturday night's NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race at Charlotte. Casey Kane won it last year from the Consi. Remember that? But first, the fastest car did not win Friday night's NASCAR Nationwide Series event in Darlington. A roundtable review of that is next.
Welcome back to NASCAR Now.
Friday night, 200 miles for the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Darlington, a night dominated by Kyle Busch in the Gibbs 18. He led the opening 39 laps, gave up the lead for 5 laps to Carl Edwards, then got it back on that pit stop, and led almost the rest of the way until Kenseth closing in the final laps, and then a big wreck in front of them puts debris all over the racetrack. Kyle apparently clipped some of it, and that right rear does not have all the air in it that it should. So Kyle has to go to pit road. After leading almost the whole night, he winds up finishing in 16th position. Puts Matt Kenseth on the point for the green-white checker restart, and the racing lasted all of about, what, 5 seconds?
Yeah. Morgan Shepherd ends up spinning out here in the front straightaway. The caution comes out, and the race is over with. So,
yeah. Let's see, racing is cruel. Kyle Busch led 143 laps, Matt Kenseth 4. And Matt took the trophy home.
Those kind of things happen at Darlington, Alan.
Yes, they do. Championship standings now. 37 is the lead between Kyle and Carl Edwards. Nationwide Series off this week. They run at Charlotte 1 week from Saturday. There we go. Coming up next, favorite all-star race moments from years past, and a look forward to this Saturday night's no-points scramble in Charlotte.
Here comes his brother Kyle to the inside. Checkers are wreckers. Darrell Waltrip, a hand in the air, a wave to the crowd. Bill Elliott has won the Winston.
Jeff Gordon wins the Winston.
Michael Waltrip wins. Dale Earnhardt Jr. And Ryan Newman is going to win the Winston. Mark Martin wins his first career Winston. Kevin Harvick wins. Casey Kane, the fan favorite, wins the Sprint All-Star race.
So this weekend, it's the Sprint All-Star Race, 100 laps split into 4 segments, 50 laps for the first one, including a mandatory green flag pit stop on lap 25, followed by 2 20-lap segments, then a final 10-lap segment in which only green flag laps count. The race winner gets a lovely $1 million for his efforts on the no points counting night. We talk about now the Sprint All-Star Race now with Mike Wallace, Ed Hinton, and Ricky Craven. We all have favorite memories from the race over the years. We've got some tape. We're just going to roll it and talk about some of the things that have happened for us over the years. You saw the pass in the grass there a minute ago. That was cool, and Elliott followed that up not that long after by winning at his home track. The only time the race has been held someplace other than Charlotte.
Right. It was on Mother's Day, and they drew nobody, and that's why they don't run it. Truly, that race is why they don't run Mother's Day to this day.
It's not... It wasn't the ideal circumstance.
No, it was, but Atlanta didn't promote very well in those days either.
And it's T-Rex, and I still wonder why Terry Labonte and I didn't get that car.
You were driving for Hendrick then, right? Probably because Ray built it.
You're right.
And this one, the Busch brothers.
Well, you know, this shows you'll wreck your brother if it takes winning the race for $1 million. And you know, there Kyle gets underneath Kurt, unfortunately gets loose, takes them both. But that's what this race is all about. It's all about the money and the prestige, bragging rights. Heck, you can send them a Christmas card later, you know?
Let me ask you this. NASCAR promotes its racing in general as the fact that it's an all-star race every week. All the big stars are in the field for each race. So does this sport need an all-star race?
No. They needed to name it something after the Winston went away. I don't know, maybe why don't they call it the Sprint? Honestly, it's a bonus race is all it is.
Not that anything's free, but it should be the free-for-all, because I know from a driver's standpoint, and Mike, you can appreciate this, right? You went there with no regard to points, and we live with points all year long. Yeah. You went there saying, hey, I'm going to give it all I got or not bring it home.
Ricky, I think that's the whole part about this race. Do we need an all-star race? It might need to be named something different, but yes, we need this race because it's all the pressure's off. Yeah. No points. Just go for it. I don't care if I back it in the fence. Any other time you're going like, I got to get to the end, you know?
We'll
Call it the Saturday night feature.
We'll see how many actually get to the end of Saturday night's Sprint All-Star Race and talk about it next Monday on our NASCAR Now Roundtable. Coming back with final thoughts and some news and notes next. Now on ESPN.com, Tony Stewart may have finished 3rd on Saturday, but that's good enough to keep him atop Ryan McGee's power rankings. You'll find that at ESPN.com. Gene Haas, released from prison on Friday, has received permission from a U.S. District Court judge to attend NASCAR races while on supervised release. Bill Elliott's 13-year-old son, Chase, scored his first late model victory at Lanier National Speedway in Georgia on Saturday. Bill was there. And suspended Roush Fenway crew member Ben Williams has resigned from the team, according to an article at SceneDaily.com. And finally, what do you think the favorite is, or who do you think the favorite is for the NASCAR Sprint Cup title this year? You voted. It looks like a lot of folks are backing Jeff. The Drive for 5. No reaction?
I like the
no
name,
reaction?
Drive for 5. That sounds cool.
Yeah, he loves it.
Yeah.
He's been eating it for 6 or 7 years now.
Keep it up. Jimmy Johnson is going to make his run. Mark Martin doesn't want to talk about the championship, but
he's going to be a contender.
That's right.
All right, Ricky, Ed, Mike, thank you. Tuesday show at 5 Eastern Time, and then next Monday we'll wrap up all the All-Star Weekend action. See ya.